आग से बचाए। Powered by NECC, Sunday हो या Monday, रोज खाओ अंडे। Co-powered by only OLX Autos gives the best price for your car.
Good evening and welcome on board the Newstrack. I'm Rahul Kanwal. The spectre of hybrid terrorism giving nightmares to security forces in the Kashmir Valley. How should India answer this new challenge? That's my top focus on the Newstrack tonight.
8 killings. 27 days. A new jihad. No high-profile targets. No big guns. Hybrid terror bleeds Kashmir. Who'll stop this jihad? Butchered, innocent people deserve justice. Big focus on Newstrack.
The killings in Kashmir causing grave consternation all across the country. We'll do a deep dive on the show. Here are the headlines I'm tracking tonight. Massive outrage against the alleged rape of a minor in Hyderabad. Sources say sons of netas from the TRS, AMM and Congress may be involved. BJP storms Jubilee Hills police station in protest. New CCTV video shows Moose Wala murder suspects at a petrol pump. Lawrence Bishnoi admits that his gang members killed the singer. 5 days after Sidhu Moose Wala's murder, Punjab Chief Minister meets the singer's bereaved family members. BJP and Akalis call it a photo op. RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat's big message on the Gyanvyapi showdown says, why look for a shivling in every mosque? Advocates for resolution of dispute by mutual consent.
ज्ञानवापी के बारे में हमारी कुछ श्रद्धाएं हैं, परंपरा से चलती आई, हम कर रहे, ठीक है, परंतु हर मस्जिद में शिवलिंग क्यों देखना? तो भाई वो भी एक पूजा है, ठीक है, बाहर से आई है.
Russia-Ukraine war enters its 100th day. Putin digs in his heels. Zelensky says 20% of Ukraine is under the control of Russian forces. Two targeted killings in 24 hours. There is no end to the terror attacks in the Kashmir Valley. The Home Minister today chaired a high-level meeting to review security. The meeting was attended by the Army Chief, the NSA, the Jammu and Kashmir DGP and the Director Generals of the BSF and the CRPF. The spotlight is now on the Modi government to act. Will this meeting trigger a new response? Take a look at this report and then we'll look at what that response really should be.
A banker and now a labourer. Two non-Kashmiri Hindus killed in a span of 12 hours in the Kashmir Valley. Hours after killing bank employee Vijay Kumar in Kulgam, terrorists attacked two migrant labourers from Bihar working in Kashmir. 17-year-old Dilkush lost his life in the attack. Vijay Kumar's final journey saw hundreds pay tribute to the bank employee. His inconsolable mother and devastated father demanding justice for their young son's death.
मैं के बेटा कौन के सदका मम्मी मैं 10-15 दिन तो मैं आवांगा मैं आई और 10 दिन रह गए जाऊंगा तो 4 महीना मम्मी ले दो ब्याह करवा आगे गए हो पुट मुंह नहीं निकाले माने मैंने छुट्टी कोनी मैं छुट्टी पर जाऊंगा बेटा एक घर तो मावड़ी का नावा दे
इतना ही तो अभी जस्ट हुई है गवर्नमेंट कुछ समय तो लेती है लेकिन कुछ व्यवस्था कर दे तो अच्छा है, लेकिन मैं ये सोचता हूँ कि जहाँ से ये किलिंग के लिए तैयार होते हैं वहीं से पहले इनकी जासूसी से पकड़ में आ जाए, तो वहाँ पहुँचे उससे पहले ही इनको खत्म कर सकते हैं।
Jammu and Kashmir has been rattled by a string of targeted killings in recent months. 8 people have lost their lives in the last 27 days in the Union Territory, triggering panic among non-Muslims. And these are not random killings. India Today has accessed a full dossier that reveals how the plot to kill innocent civilians was hatched last year in Muzaffarabad in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. The intelligence alert scooped by India Today gives out precise details of Pakistan's Bleed Kashmir plot. A meeting of Pakistan Intelligence Agency officers with terror groups was held way back in September last year. A plan was then made at the meeting to target non-locals, Kashmiri pundits and security officers in Kashmir. And if any local civilians came in the way, so be it, that would be the cost of this jihad. Weapons were supposed to be smuggled through Uri and Tangdar. How many more innocent lives are at risk now that Pakistan's nefarious agenda, a familiar one, has once again been revealed? It's time to put a stop to Pakistan-sponsored terrorism and restore peace to the valley. And the government is on notice to deliver it as quickly as possible. With Arvind Ojha, Bureau Report, India Today.
The shattering video of Vijay Kumar's killing has revealed a new terror strategy in the valley. The terrorist uses a pistol, fires 2 shots and flees. Not an AK-47, but a small pistol. Nearly 150 pistols have been recovered from terror hideouts in the Kashmir Valley. This seems to be a new form of pistol jihad in a state that has traditionally seen terrorists use assault rifles.
Terror flowing from the tiny barrels of pistols. India Today has just shown you how security agencies have noticed a marked shift by valley terrorists. No longer are they arming their hit squads with traditional Kalashnikov assault rifles, but with semi-automatic pistols. In attack after attack, pistols are becoming apparent. Hybrid terror it may be, but the noticeable shift in the choice of firearms is a significant tactic that poses a multi-layered challenge to security forces in Jammu and Kashmir. Consider the facts first. Nearly 150 pistols have been recovered by security forces from terror hideouts in J&K this year alone. Let's first ask the basic questions. Why are terrorists shifting to pistols from rifles? For starters, pistols are cheaper, easier to conceal, easier to dispose. Additionally, terrorists armed with pistols are less conspicuous than rifle-brandishing jihadis and can far more easily infiltrate into places like banks or offices to conduct murderous shootings. Question 2. Are pistols more effective than rifles? Pistols are not as effective as assault rifles, but are very useful at short range. The fact that their small size allows attackers to close the distance makes up for their shortfall in actual bullet range. Is there a shortage of AK-47 rifles forcing a shift to pistols? On the contrary, there's no shortage at all of assault rifles and Kalashnikov weapons for terrorists. After the fall of Afghanistan last year, in fact, a huge surplus of such assault rifles is proven to have become available to jihadi terror forces in Pakistan and POK, with consignments of those weapons finding their way into the Kashmir hinterland as well. So it isn't a shortage that's driving the pistol shift. So is there a shift in terror strike tactics? And that brings us to the core of the matter, a shift in tactics where terrorist groups are increasingly employing lesser trained hit squads that are able to hide in plain sight with minimal training and able to wield pistols. Such shooters don't need rifle training in terror camps, but just a few days of firing practice. And this makes the turnaround and return on investment for terror groups much higher. These CCTV images of banker Vijay's assassin captures fully the pistol shift in Valley jihadi terror. And while the pressure is on, the age of jihadi pistol warfare could be here to stay. Bureau Report, India Today.
Security forces are describing this new phase of terror as hybrid terror. Park-based terror groups using locals, training them online rather than in physical camps across the line of control. These radicalized youth don't have any criminal records, usually go back to living their normal lives after carrying out an attack. Kamaljeet Sandhu and Manjeet Negi track internal security for us. They filed this exclusive report.
Unpredictable interrelated attacks that attract fleeting attention, and their perpetrators slip back into routine life after executing them with pistols and revolvers. A new version of jihadi violence has entered the terror theatre. Hybrid terrorists, the boys next door using small firearms. The radicalized local youth picking up the weapon from villages up in the mountains pose a new challenge to security forces in the Kashmir Valley.
New tactics like hybrid terrorist, narco terror, all sorts of new experiment of ill design, enemy been doing, enemy is doing, be it JNK police, CRPF, army and BSF. Jointly, we are fully prepared to tackle any sort of new experiment of enemy.
Small weapons, mostly pistols, making their way from Pakistan and into the hands of hybrid terrorists. 9 people killed in 22 days in shoot-and-scoot attacks. Around 160 terrorists estimated to be active in the valley. Among them, 70 are local and 90 foreign from across the border. And hybrid terrorists number at least 50. With the crackdown on separatists, the recent sentencing of Yasin Malik, and the centre's move to restore land of Kashmiri pundits, security sources say terrorists seem desperate to make their presence felt, and the assailants choose soft targets. A bank manager, a school teacher, laborers, terrorists carrying assault rifles, terrorists laying siege of prominent locations, all look distinctly out of date. Hybrid terrorism makes do with lighter infrastructure and sitting duck targets. But that doesn't mean conservative terrorism has completely vanished.
Despite the ceasefire agreement between India and Pakistan, around 200 terrorists are waiting across the border to infiltrate in Jammu and Kashmir. And they are waiting to launch this side. So far, 21 foreign militants have been killed.
Security forces along the LOC on a high alert against potential infiltrations from the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir.
More than 150, 170 terrorists waiting to infiltrate. We are keeping tab on all sorts of development, BSF and army. And we are alert, we are confident that no ill design of enemy would be successful.
The hybrid version of terrorism has added to the security scare in the valley, aided and abetted by a hostile neighbor. With Kamaljeet Sandhu in New Delhi and Manjeet Negi in Baramulla, Bureau Report, India Today.
How should India deal with this menace of hybrid terror? And what happens next? Lieutenant General Syed Ata Hasnain has been in charge of security in the Kashmir Valley as the General Officer Commanding of 15 Corps, headquartered in Srinagar. He joins us now on this broadcast, as does Sushant Sareen, who's a strategic affairs expert and a senior fellow at the Observer Research Foundation. We have Sushil Pandit, well-known Kashmiri rights activist. We've got Iftikhar Miskar, a political analyst, joining from Srinagar. And we've got Shaina NC joining us as a spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party. I want to go across first and foremost to General Hasnain for his sense on these changing terror tactics. You know, in all the years that I've tracked terrorism, sometimes I've seen terrorists with a pistol, but usually that's a backup weapon. The main weapon is their assault rifle. Now we're seeing attacks being carried out with pistols. And this idea that the hybrid terrorists, not all of them have gone across the LC, they stay in Kashmir get radicalized online and then melt back into the population after committing an attack. What are you making of this new phase of terrorism and how should India be dealing with it? General Hasnain.
Rahul, thank you for having me on your show. And I must compliment India today for the excellent program which you just showed to your viewers. I think the truth is all there. This is a conflict transformation kind of a stage which we are at the moment. There is a pushback which is taking place after the achievements that the security forces have had, after the achievements that the government of India has had in the last 3 years. Inevitably, a pushback had to take place. Because after all, just removing Article 370 was not the final victory in Jammu and Kashmir. So this was expected. And it's come at a time when things are opening out post the COVID pandemic, etc. This is the time when huge amounts of people are coming in for tourism. The idea is to make themselves relevant. That is what it is. And everyone knows that using AK-47s as a weapon in the valley is a call for suicide. The security forces are going to track you out and will get rid of you at some stage or the other. But the pistol is the most nondescript weapon. Along with the pistol, even a grenade. A grenade has been used so many times in grenade lobbing incidents in the valley. So a pistol is a very nondescript weapon and ideal for this kind of terrorism. How to deal with it? My way of looking at it is there is a security issue domain and there is a politico-social domain. Both these domains have to be looked at. The security domain, there's no doubt the police has to be more effective in policing. It's an outstanding police, the Jammu and Kashmir police. Better intelligence, more patrolling, more domination, greater number of arrests, greater reach out into the countryside, assisted by the Rashtra Rifles, along with the other CRPF elements, etc. But the more important thing I do believe is also the political approach. This is the time when I think the political community can do a tremendous amount by its outreach into the countryside, into the areas which are being affected. Somewhere or the other, we have to ensure that people do not leave their homes and go away because a exodus of Kashmiri pundits or the minorities is going to be a very, very psychologically...
That's deeply problematic, and in fact the government at the highest levels is worried about these attacks on the Hindu minority members in the Kashmir Valley. And my colleague Siddharth Zarabi has been part of some high-level government debriefings on how the government is viewing the current situation, Siddharth, at the moment, and their options in terms of trying to tackle with these challenges.
Well, the assessment really at the government level is that this is frustration in as many words because the terrorists are not being able to do anything at a higher level. Obviously, even this is concerning them. The focus of lone wolf attacks, which has been described to us by people within the government, is in some ways difficult to control at this stage. Primarily, Rahul, because these are young boys who are just picking up a pistol and then virtually emerging out of nowhere and doing this. And therefore, the reading is that a different strategy in terms of tackling it at the local level is needed. We know the kind of CASO-led operations that have happened, but a lone wolf terrorist or a hybrid terrorist, as he may be called, this is one of the key things that they are grappling with. The second, there is now a sense of acknowledgement within the government that there are serious deficiencies with the package for Kashmiri Hindus who had migrated in 1990 that was put in place by the Manmohan Singh government and has really not been updated so far. There are administrative difficulties in terms of the kind of accommodation they are being provided. There are single individual ladies who are having to walk 3-4 kilometers into deeply forested or backward areas to attend a one-room kind of school. So there are security issues around that. Hopefully all of that will come in place. But yes, you're absolutely right that a lone wolf targeted killing of non-Muslims And, it's not just non-locals, Rahul, it is non-Muslims in the valley is something that has emerged as a fresh challenge.
And Sushant Sareen, usually counter-insurgency operations in Jammu and Kashmir have involved going out into the farms, going out into the jungles, trying to take down a group of terrorists who are hiding somewhere in the upper reaches. What you have now in this hybrid terror is a scenario where some young boy who's probably never been across the LOC, isn't necessarily identified as being a terrorist, isn't in one of our lists, conducts an attack, goes back into his house, making it that much tougher, and unless people locally start speaking out against him, making it that much tougher to identify who he is and prevent these lone wolf attacks that we're seeing against members of the Hindu community. What should we now be doing?
So Rahul, yeah, clearly if the things have moved from counter-insurgency to counter-terrorism, then your tactics have to change accordingly. That's a no-brainer. I think what I find a little surprising really is that most of these guys who are involved in these so-called hybrid attacks or hybrid terrorists are inevitably found out within a matter of days, sometimes a matter of couple of weeks. So it's not as though the intelligence network is not functioning well. The only problem is that the intelligence network actually functions after an event. And I think that is something that they need to apply their mind to. How do they fix? Of course, there are going to be problems in that. And I think we have to be extremely careful. I'm sure Siddharth didn't mean it the way he said it. But this is not a lone wolf attack. A lone wolf attack is, say, somebody who's simply not linked with any group, with nothing, maybe just doing something on the internet, suddenly decides that, his father's got a weapon or he gets a weapon from somewhere and he goes and carries out an attack. This is, I'm afraid, not lone wolf. This is an orchestrated, very well planned, executed kind of a design which is at play. And the reason why this is happening, and I think your report put it very succinctly, but I'll just add my 2 bits to it. The reason why you're going in for pistols is because the objective why you are carrying out this pure unadulterated terrorism. This is pure unadulterated terrorism. Let's make no bones about it, right? The reason is that a pistol is the most effective weapon in this. To take a rifle or an assault rifle is an overkill. What is the objective you are trying to achieve? The objective you are trying to achieve is the kind of propaganda campaign that the Pakistanis and some of their supporting element in Kashmir have built. That there is a demographic invasion taking place, there is demographic change taking place. Even the so-called alleged back channel talks apparently are centered around, can India do something to stop the demographic transition? Can you at least, okay, you don't want to do, undo the changes in 370, but can you at least restore 35A in one form or another? What is this? What is the unsaid part about that? Which is what they're trying to do now. Which is that we will target these minorities, we will target these migrant labor, we will target all these guys, and you don't need to kill by the dozens. You can kill a few and you create a fear psychosis, and there is an exodus once again out of the valley, which we are now seeing. And I don't blame the people. Secondly, I think it's good if, as Siddharth is telling us, that they are making a security audit. After all, why would you send a bank manager who is in a place in Anantnag into a somewhat isolated area of South Kashmir, a hotbed of terrorism, where he becomes a soft target? Why would you send somebody like him out there? Can't you find some other place where he can work?
Some of this is bizarre. If they are in pockets where there are multiple Kashmiri Pandits living together in some colony, there is some safety in numbers. If you post people out in the villages or in small towns where there's virtually no other member of the non-minority community, of the minority community, then it is very, very difficult to keep them safe.
Well, they are really prefabricated ghettos mostly, and the point that you ask is really relevant. Please remember that these positions come with an exceptional clause, and it's a draconian clause where the person does not have any mobility forever after signing on for this job within what is the same union territory, which is allowed to every employee regardless of group C or D. And many of these are pretty basic entry-level government jobs. They were provided, Rahul, I must say this, in lieu of the 18,000 plus jobs that were normally with Kashmiri Hindus in Kashmir pre-1990. These are not additional jobs or jobs taken away from the locals in Kashmir Valley, and they're just hardly 5 or 1,000 odd people. There is a deliberate design, and I could sense that there is acknowledgement after Rajni Bala's killing, who had to perhaps trek even further after the last transport available for a kilometer or plus to go to a very remote place, that these people are being posted almost as a punishment, and that posting is happening at district level. It is happening at authorities below that level. So at the state, union territory level or the central level, those details are not available.
No, but that's a failure of oversight. Shine INC, the BJP has been trying to project internally and externally that ever since the revocation of Article 370, terrorism is down, the security situation is better, thousands of tourists are flocking to the valley, you've rolled out development projects in Kashmir, and that there is a new Naya Kashmir that you're building. All these killings call into question some of those claims the BJP is making after revoking Article 370.
So Rahul, I have 2-3 points to make. One is that Article 370 was clearly necessary and the abrogation was quite seamless. Having said that, if you look at the numbers of terrorists and terror activities, they have gone down substantially. It's not as if the government has not been able to catch hold of even 22 terrorists in the recent past. Yes, Rajni Bala's death and other citizens too, high profile or low, I will not even get into that. The fact that you could have a banker or you could have a pharmacist or you could have a government employee means that there is some local knowledge of how these perpetrators are coming into the system as locals and using small pistols to conduct what their wrongdoings are. Is the government going to give a befitting answer? Absolutely. You know better than anyone else the political will of the Honorable Prime Minister and the Home Minister as well as the investigative agencies. But having said that, does that make us safe, or does that make the Kashmiri Pandit or the citizen of Jammu and Kashmir safe? Yes, there are questions which come up when one sees these kind of brutal murders and terrorists coming in as locals and then a lot of them having disappeared from the actual list of the not knowing where they've disappeared and how they have even come in. But I think that in the days to come there will be much more collaboration between citizens.
Sushil Pandit, no, but why hasn't it happened? This is on your watch. You've been now in power for 8 years. Ma'am, if you were in opposition then blaming Farooq, Mehbooba, Manmohan Singh would have been one thing. You're in power. If this collaboration and cooperation that you're talking about hasn't happened so far. So let me put that question. Okay, so let me put that question to Sushil Pandit. There are two ways of looking at it. One, that this is an inevitable pushback after the revocation of 370. Kashmiri terrorists wanted to send a message that no, there is no Naya Kashmir, this is the stale old Purana Kashmir, and this is a pushback, inevitable. The second is, as Siddharth pointed out, that there is way too much lack of coordination, lack of oversight, lack of planning, for which the state administration and the security forces, and especially the administration, is responsible, because now they've been in power for 8 years in one way or the other, and therefore you have no one else to blame. This is happening on your watch.
If it is the pushback because of Article 370, what was all that was happening before the abrogation, or what you call the neutering of Article 370? So hunting for alibis for something which is touted as a new phenomenon may not going to help. Let me bring in 2-3 points and give me a couple of minutes for that. I have very patiently waited for my turn. Kashmir has turned into a militarized society since we left 30 years ago. It has transformed. And when I say militarized society, I don't mean to say that everyone's carrying a gun. What I mean to say is that even a senior school boy on the street knows the difference between a pistol and a revolver. And when he sees, he knows what is a rocket-propelled grenade or a hand grenade, and how different vehicles of army are used in different manners. He even knows what are the standard operating procedure for the guard who's put up there or a picket. He knows his way around the army, the security forces. And it is this that you are now facing in terms of young 15, 20, 22, 25-year-olds who don't need training, who are familiar. And what has actually come as a shot in the arm is that 6-7 years ago, there were for 2-3 years frenzied funerals of fallen militants. You had a spectacle where a halo of martyrdom was very easily put on the likes of Zakir Musa or Burhan Wani, or even faceless, nameless Pakistani militants who were given Mehman Mujahid funerals in thousands, gun salutes. What did you expect? Those impressionable 14, 15-year-olds today are 22, 23, 24-year-olds. And they are ready material. You are now reaping the harvest of your adventures in 2016, 2017, 2018.
Who are you blaming?
And more will
Who
happen.
do you think is responsible for the current security situation?
Of course, the BJP, of course, the PDP, of course, all the security analysts who kept mum, who didn't scream blue murder when they saw such a thing happen. Nowhere in the world, terrorists, jihadis are given such fond send-offs, gun salutes, as we saw happen in in Kashmir. Even Yaqub Memon was given a 40,000, 50,000 strong funeral in Mumbai. Can you imagine? So, and another aspect of what we are seeing in Kashmir today is this hackneyed way of touting numbers. 6 months back, this was the level of violence. Now, this is the level of violence. In your regime, so many killed. In my regime, so many neutralized. This is not going to be an intelligent or even commonsensical way of measuring how you're dealing with terror. Imagine, in US, for the last 20 years, there hasn't been a single serious terror attack. Have they lowered down their guard in terms of what they spend on jihad?
Shaina NC, respond to some of the points that Sushil Pandit is making, that A, this is on your watch, you have nobody else to blame, and if you haven't been able to provide security, for example, instances of people having to walk for kilometers in remote areas, you can't say you will now start looking at what's happening. The blood of these people is in your hands, ma'am.
No, but it's not as if these terror groups have been successful. Rahul, please objectively bring out the numbers of the past, the present, and what we have done to contain terror. Now, I am not for 1 minute disagreeing with any of your panelists, because obviously if there is one loss of life, be it a Rajni Bala or any of the other civilians who are Kashmiri Pandits or who are citizens of India, then that needs to be contained, yes, clearly. But this kind of approach of getting locals and youngsters with small pistols and to try and create this kind of a havoc is not something that is not going to be dealt with vigilantly. So the government has ensured that what we can do to bring Jammu Kashmir into the mainstream, be it better jobs, better infrastructure, what they are trying to do is derail the kind of development projects by hitting out at government officials, etc. Now, the point is that you said that, we need a lot more to do. Yes, we clearly do, but also the participation of information from civilians at large.
So let me put that question to Iftikhar Misgar, where the role of society and the locals in the community becomes important. This whole idea that locals need to come up with information, don't allow what happened during the mass exodus of the late 80s and the early 90s to happen again. If there are normal Kashmiris who obviously don't agree with terrorists and what they are doing, they should come out and speak if they have any information, help the security forces neutralize these hybrid terrorists. Are we seeing that happen at all?
Gaurav, I'm glad you gave me time when the program is at the closure, and I hope it won't be the closing remarks. You'll give me at least 30 seconds to keep my point here, because I also belong to this place, and I might be, because there are so many people who have the resources, like they know how army should handle the situation, and there are people from political parties. But we must see and understand the basic reality, the problem. As Atta Saab said, or somebody else said, that these hybrid militants, what you call terrorists, they have no track record in the previous life. If a person, if a boy, 16-year boy, having no track record, what makes him to take the weapon and do this dirtiest job on the earth? This is the time to introspect. See, after abrogation of 370 Article and 35A, you must understand, and every Indian citizen, Indian political party should understand that the fundamental rights have been suppressed in Kashmir Valley. I may understand it, you may understand it, but there is an enemy country who takes privilege of that. And we must not do sugarcoating of so many things. What BJP did after abrogation of 370 Article and 35A, every day there is a law which makes Kashmiris feel alienated. And I'm telling you very frankly, there is nothing like Hindus and Muslims war like that. Every day a Muslim is dying, every day a Hindu is dying, every day a Sikh is dying. They're all dying. And for God's sake, we are dying since last 30 years. We cannot make it an issue of one government to other government and one process to other process. And one of my friends here blamed, like every young boy knows what is grenade, what is pistol. Who taught them? Because
Did you buy this theory, General Hasnain, that post the revocation of Article 370, radicalization has actually gone up? And the security forces and the government really have themselves to blame, because it's not as if people are feeling more integrated, far from, they're feeling more radical, and therefore you can't blame ISI. It's these people, 16-year-old, 18-year-old, 20-year-old kids who want to take up the gun against India.
See, Rahul, there is this aspect of radicalization and counter-radicalization has been troubling us for the last 30 years.
Correct.
Let's not say this is happening in the last 3 years. Radicalization has been a part of the strategy which Pakistan has used against India to continue to do that. And we have never really understood as to how to counter it properly. We have undertaken many programs, but we have really not succeeded. The world over, lots of programs are going on. Not too many have succeeded. So to actually say that radicalization increased because of removing Article 370, I will not agree with that. But may I just add one or two other points to this whole thing? The strategy which is being worked out by Pakistan at the moment is so very clear. There is nothing happening on the line of control. There's a ceasefire intact on the line of control. There is hardly any attempt of infiltration going on. So obviously the aim is to try and make sure that only the inside burns. There is no necessity of putting a fire onto the line of control and the border areas, etc., because lots of attention starts going there. Everyone's attention, they want it to be focused inside the valley, the hinterland. And that is the strategy which is working out at the moment. You have no option but to ensure that to prevent a mass exodus from the valley.
Let me put that question to Siddharth Zarabi. You've been speaking to many members of the Kashmiri Pandit community. How real is the fear of another exodus? Because in small numbers in different parts of Kashmir, they've now gone and settled. I know they're worried they want to come to Jammu, but is there a very real fear that they'll want to come back away?
It's already happening. As per our information, close to 500 individuals have left Kashmir Valley and their jobs. And
in how much time?
Over the last week particularly. There have been trickles before that, but you know, in WhatsApp groups is how you get this data. And the key thing to remember is that they have not been relieved. They are running away, and in these jobs, they will lose their jobs if they don't mark their attendance. And as of a few hours ago, after the high-powered meeting, what we are picking up from different sources is that there is no relaxation that is likely to be granted with regard to their request to temporarily move back to Jammu.
Why not?
I don't know what is the rationale for this. The second request that they had made was to at least congregate them. And there are lots of people who are not Kashmiri by ethnic identity, come from other states in our country, and a couple of them have been bumped off, to at least bring them to district headquarters where the local police will be able to at least provide security. And these are really far-flung areas, Shopian, Kupwara, many of...
No, but some of these aren't sustainable. You know, I heard on the show yesterday, they were saying take us to Jammu or put us in a camp or bring us to the district headquarters. Sushant Sareen, the problem with some of these measures is they may provide temporary relief, but let's assume you're in a camp for 10, 15, 20, 30 days. When you go back, you're still vulnerable. Yeah. So it's not as if getting temporary succor is any long-term solution.
That's correct. And which is why, and I think my friend Sushil made a very valid point, that, you know, numbers are only one metric. It's not the sole metric to judge whether a situation has become normal or not. And in fact, politicians might bandy about numbers, but the security forces in Kashmir have a list of at least 24 metrics on the basis of which they decide whether the situation in a particular area is normal or not normal. And by those metrics, very clearly, it is not a very normal situation, particularly in South Kashmir. In North Kashmir, things are relatively stable, but in South Kashmir, they are not. And yet, if you have an administration and a government, as Siddharth is saying, which pushes these people, exploits their desperation. So it's now the terrorists using their desperation to have jobs and livelihoods to butcher them, and a government having the insensitivity of pushing these people, using them as lambs for the slaughter, sending them into remote areas without giving them adequate security, simply because you hold them by their curlies and you are saying that either you lose your job or you lose your life.
So Shaina, part of this is because the government wanted to declare victory. You wanted to show Sab Changa CG, there's a new Naya Kashmir emerging, and therefore you prematurely declared victory. You wanted to say that so many Kashmiri Muslim pundits and Hindus have gone and settled in different parts of the valley, and that's the message you wanted to communicate without going in for the killer blow, without solving the problem once and forever, wanting to declare victory and wanting to show some result at the end of the revocation of 35A and 370.
No, Rahul, this is not about victory and defeat. This is not about we did it and you didn't. This is a pushback which is coming from terror outfits, and we know that these kind of tactics are all new in the game, using locals, using the youth, trying to destabilize an already development-friendly, progressive atmosphere by hitting out at government officials is part of their throwback. But that does not mean we are going to leave it here. This is an ongoing process. Now, post 370, was the transition seamless? Did we not see a drop in all kinds of terror activities? Did we not see Kashmir and Jammu come into the mainstream with jobs created, tourism coming back, people interested in land and all kinds of activities? I think that we are not here to tom-tom about what the Honorable Prime Minister and Home Minister have done. If there are lacunas in the system, if there are pistols and new techniques being used by people who are being misled, then we need to deal with that too, and we will. Our security agencies are on the job 24/7. I'm sure national television is not just the only place where these things are discussed. There are high-level meetings the Honorable Home Minister had, as we know, and there are all stakeholders taken into consideration. So let's not just view this objectively to suggest that, this has happened and this is the end of the road. It isn't. It's obviously very it's sorrowful for any Indian to lose life, be it a pharmacist, a school teacher, theatre actress, or anybody else, for that matter, whether they're known, not known, whether they're Kashmiri Pandit or even Muslim, is not the question.
At this moment, we have a very immediate challenge where there are hundreds of people, if not thousands, who are feeling vulnerable, and the government needs to come out with solutions to provide them safety and security. Those can't be temporary, let's lock them up in a district headquarters or pack them off to Jammu, because that won't really solve the problem. We'll track this story very, very closely. As General Hasnain said, India is now in this new phase of hybrid terrorism that we are dealing with in Kashmir. It requires a different response to what we've had so far. You're not now chasing boys with guns in the valley, in the forest. You're now dealing with these locals who melt back into the population, a much bigger challenge in terms of trying to neutralize them. So we'll track this story. Thank you very much to all our guests for joining us. When we come back on the other side of a very quick break, massive outrage against the alleged rape of a minor in Hyderabad. Sources say sons of netas from the TRS, the AIMIM and the Congress could be involved. Details coming up on the other side.
2022's biggest crime news break.
Popular Punjabi rap star and Congress leader Sidhu Moose Wala was shot dead on Sunday.
Terrifying gangster hit on a superstar.
Visuals of this Thar vehicle is a witness to the dastardly attack.
India today, relentlessly first at every step.
Sidhu Moose Wala was targeted by these two dreaded gangsters.
With Moose Wala's family, fans, friends and foes.
Who is this man and what is the gang that he has run?
Banduk, Bishnoi, Badla and Bhagwan. No angle untouched. India watching Moose Wala murder coverage. Only on India Today. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Everyone's busy finding what's trending. You're busy finding out why. India Today for those who research before reacting. Download the India Today app now.
You are watching India Today.
How many more civilian killings? Terrifying spike in Kashmir butchery. Rahul, Amreen, Rajni and now Vijay. India Today Spotlight sets news agenda. Zero rest in our relentless coverage. Who'll save Kashmir's innocence? Jihadis versus innocents. Complete coverage only on India Today.
There is shock and horror over the alleged rape of a minor in Hyderabad because all accused are sons of VIP netas, allegedly belonging to the AIMIM, the TRS and the Congress. An FIR has been filed, but it doesn't name the accused. The 17-year-old girl was allegedly gang raped in a Mercedes. The big question is whether there's a massive cover-up on to shield the netas and their sons.
A 17-year-old allegedly gang raped. Sons of VIPs under scanner for the gruesome crime. Reports that a minor was molested and gang raped after a party at a pub on Saturday has left Hyderabad jolted and shocked. Police are probing the role of sons of influential political leaders in the crime after the girl complained. An MLA's son is among 5 accused in the case, and all are reported to be minors.
What MLA family say that he was not driving the car. He was there in that car, but he got down after leaving the pub. He got down midway, and there he sat for 1 hour. That's what MLA family is clarifying. That's the clarification coming from MLA side.
A case was first filed under POCSO Act against the accused minors. Later, rape charges were added. A senior police official told India Today TV that the girl had gone to the pub with some of the accused. Later, she was sexually assaulted in a Mercedes car, but was only able to identify one of the accused. The BJP has said that KCR government is trying to hush up the case because sons of VIPs are involved. The Congress too joined in, hitting out at the government.
When you have all the circumstantial evidence, CCTV footage, what is that which is stopping you from arresting these culprits?
It's clear-cut negligence of Telangana police and the intentional delay in the proceedings of the case, whereas big fishes are involved in this case.
The incident has shamed Hyderabad.
Rape is a rape. We can all sanitize it or, make it as glorious as possible by adding all sorts of suffixes, prefixes, juvenile rape, gang rape, marital rape. But no, rape is a rape and it's no less than a murder because you're killing the soul of the victim. And after that, the person is simply walking dead.
India Today has accessed FIR and it does not name a single accused. The case has been made out against unknown persons. In fact, police have seized the Mercedes car but have made no move to catch the culprits who were in it. India Today has even accessed the CCTV footage from outside the pub on the day of the incident. Strangely, police are yet to verify if the accused and the victim are seen together in the video.
The incident took place on Saturday. FIR was first registered on Wednesday. Today is Friday, and till this moment, there is no arrest. Opposition is definitely asking serious questions. Media is also asking serious questions because all believe that because of the involvement of high-profile family, police is going slow in this entire horrific gang rape case. With camera person Damodar, Ashish in Hyderabad for India Today.
This is where we wrap up the Newstrack tonight. For your time and your trust, thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you 8 p.m. Monday evening. Till then, from all of us here, have a great weekend and goodbye.
Hello and welcome to our special Big in Your Life News, your weekly special for the best of big news. In this weekly roundup, we bring to you some of the top news that's made headlines last week. First up, India started the groundwork for 5G spectrum auction slated to take place this year, as per the plans announced by the Secretary of the Telecommunications Department and Chairman of the Digital Communications Commission, K. Rajaraman. The plan is to roll out 5G mobile services within 2022-23 by telecom providers. It's expected that the 5G will contribute $450 billion to the Indian economy. In another big news this week, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced the release of 21,000 crore rupees to more than 10 crore beneficiary farmers. The announcement was made as the Prime Minister arrived in Shimla to participate in the Garib Kalyan Sammelan. This falls under the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Samman Nidhi scheme. And good news for Indian hockey fans as the Indian women's hockey team has climbed to the 6th position in the FIH World Hockey Rankings, making it their best ever ranking till date. With 2,029.396 points, the Indian women's hockey team is now placed above Spain in the world rankings. So that's it from this week's special of Big in Your Life News. See you next week.
This exhibition highlights the work of two of the most important couturiers working in the 20th century. They dominated fashion after World War II, and they really did so much to bring cultural, I think, advancement and excitement back to Paris and to fashion. Feminine fashion, luxurious fashion, after so much deprivation during the Depression and World War II. Very often, at a quick glance, it is difficult to distinguish who made a particular suit, who made a particular cocktail dress, but I think my goal is to also ask our students and our visitors, look carefully. When you start to look at the label and you start to train your eye, subtle clues will start to come about. You'll see a little bit more structure with Dior. You'll see a little bit more fluidity sometimes with the work of Balenciaga.
You are watching